It was very cult-like. Everyone there it was very scary. I mean, I didn't know what I was going into. And it was just a lot of people talking, higher ups, uplines, speaking on about how they were making millions of dollars. You had those 1 or 2 families that said they hit the 1 million, and they were wearing these rings that said 1 million on them. They were kind of like school rings, but they were Primerica rings.
Life is going great until one day you're out of work. No matter how it happened, you need to find a new job. Pronto. The problem is, no one ever taught you how to navigate the ever-shifting and ever-changing wasteland of applying for a job in the modern market. I'm Rob Conlon, and here on Recruiting Hell, I help people get jobs. I'm on a mission to help educate 10,000 job seekers on the best ways to get hired in the modern job market. No matter your field, this show is designed to help you level up your job hunting game and escape the many circles of recruiting hell. Step into my studio and let's get you the hell out of here. This episode of Recruiting Hell is generously supported by our friends at CoinList, one of the fastest growing companies in the cryptocurrency space. CoinList is hiring. Visit www.coinlist.co/jobs to apply. Tell them Rob sent you. Hello and welcome to Recruiting Hell. I'm your host, Rob Conlon. Today we get to talk about one of the biggest threats to the unemployed that's out there right now, MLMs, or multi-level marketing schemes. We touched on it very early in this show, way back in episode 11, which aired almost a year ago. But I really wanted to dedicate some time to it here when I had the opportunity to find some experts who could talk about MLMs in depth. Now, before we start, I want to make a quick disclaimer to our listeners here. Normally, Recruiting Hell does not take a position on most issues. However, there are a few exceptions, and this is one of them. With how dangerous this type of job offering can be to vulnerable members of society, their families, and their finances, I, your humble host, and this brand and program take an exceptionally strong anti-MLM stance. Listen on, and you'll find out why. Today, we welcome some outstanding folks I've met on my podcast journey who did a deep dive into this topic with their own show. It's my pleasure to welcome Ioanna Kekatos and Aaron Carlson of Sip With Me, a Chicago-based podcast that's mixed, shaken, and stirred to perfection. Ioanna and Aaron cover a variety of hard-hitting topics on their show, and of course have a delicious drink recipe to share with you at the end of each one of their episodes. Now, late last year, these two interviewed and researched the anti-MLM movement, and I brought them here today to share their findings with you as to why you should beware these types of jobs and the predatory practices they use when on your job hunt. Ioanna and Aaron, it's been way too long in coming. Welcome to the show, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank
We're
you.
so excited.
We are very excited to be here. We love your podcast.
Yeah.
Oh, well, again, and I love yours too, which is just so much fun. Again, we want to make sure that, these crossovers, always a great time.
Yep.
Exactly.
So to start off, let me put it out here to the two of you. For our listeners who may not know or might be completely new to what we're going to be talking about today, this type of basically scam job, what is an MLM and what makes it problematic for those seeking an actual financial benefit?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and I want to preface that by saying nobody should be afraid to ever ask that question if they don't know, because this is a very gray field, and a lot of people don't know, and that is purposeful in the eyes of the MLMs that run the industry. So, as you beautifully mentioned, an MLM stands for a multi-level marketing company or scheme, and essentially it's a type of business, but really more so it is a distribution model, and that is characterized by what you would classify as independent, non-salaried company representatives or team members, coaches. Different MLMs use different types of lingo. And while on its face, an MLM is not necessarily illegal and maybe might not even seem wrong, if you really can know and understand just a little bit about the field of MLMs and the industry, you'll understand why it is actually fairly immoral and why a lot of people end up losing money when they join an MLM. And that is because an MLM is essentially structured as a pyramid. So we've all heard the term pyramid scheme. An MLM is not necessarily a pyramid scheme because pyramid schemes in the eyes of the law are illegal, but an MLM rather is driven by sales, which can then move up the pyramid, whereas a pyramid scheme is more so motivated by the recruitment of individuals, and that's how people make money.
Interesting.
Ioanna, what do you want to add?
Yeah, so with MLMs in particular, they, to kind of just give a statistic that I think is important, especially with looking at MLMs as a whole, according to the FTC, 99% of participants lose money when joining an MLM. So you'll typically see things like starter kits or asking you to pay a monthly membership to join. These are kind of our red flags for people listening to really kind of take a step back and start to evaluate what this opportunity could look like. And it's really scary because for a lot of us, a lot of MLMs are kind of woven into our lives. We don't even know that a lot of these businesses are MLMs, which has been interesting along our journey is we have found that a lot of these MLMs we didn't even know were MLMs. Like for me, Avon was something that I grew up next to an Avon factory down the street. And, a lot of my mom's friends used Avon. It was recommended. I never thought of it as an MLM. Turns out it's one of the biggest MLMs. And so, just making sure to be aware and to know that if someone's reaching out to you with an opportunity and asking you to pay a certain amount per month for a job, most likely it's an MLM.
Okay, so what you're telling me here is that even Tupperware parties from the 50s, this is the same kind of thing that's been in existence, and it's partially, I think you said, Aaron, that pyramid schemes, which are not MLMs, recruit to sort of fuel the pyramid, but also MLMs are more product-based and sales-based. So I guess, where does the distinction lie, Ioanna and Aaron, of pyramid scheme? Because I seem to recall that a lot of these particular scams do have, parties, if you will. Where does that distinction lie?
Yeah, so that's a good question. And again, this is where I mentioned that gray area that really kind of plagues this field. And that, we could talk about a whole different episode talking about the laws and lobbying and the different trade associations that support the MLM industry. But essentially the FTC, to give some background, there are very few laws that actually regulate this industry. And again, that is very purposeful, and there is a lot of money going into the government through lobbying doors that make sure that stays so. But essentially, the FTC, the SEC, and actually the Postal Service and state governments are the ones who most heavily regulate the MLM industry. And the FTC uses a two-pronged test. And that really, the main thing you need to know is that if a company is using language around recruitment and around hiring people and getting paid per person that you bring on, that is a pyramid scheme.
Okay.
An MLM, though, is going to be focused around the sales of the product or service. So take Beachbody, for example, which is one that a lot of people know about. And actually, Beachbody just went public at the end of June. They're now traded. What? Yes, they're now a publicly traded company, but they are an MLM. They run by recruiting people and having them get people to sell. So essentially, if I am part of Beachbody and I have 3 people that join my team, I'm going to make a commission off of what they sell. I'm not going to make a commission, though, based off the fact that they joined Beachbody. That is the distinction between an MLM and a pyramid scheme.
That's a really clear distinction then. Of course, it's selling the product versus bringing people almost into a church, if you will. I don't mean to demonize religion there or anything like that, but inviting people to the party, if you will. Okay. Now, that brings on kind of something else that I think with the structure that can kind of maybe continue to make people think of, pyramid scheme and things like that. But again, when we talk about MLMs, I've heard these terms uplines, downlines. What are these? and how do they fit into MLM functions? Ioanna, take it away.
Yeah, so an upline is essentially, to put it into basic terms, the person who's really bringing you in to the MLM. So it's the distributor who really introduced you to the business. If you get messages on Instagram, which is typically where MLMs really target people, that would be your upline. The person who messages you, typically it's, hey girl, join the MLM, or not join the MLM, join my business. I think you could be really successful. That person is your upline, and you are considered their downline. So any person who registered to the company under you. So let's say I'm Aaron's upline. I introduce Aaron into an MLM. He is therefore my downline. And then you continue to do that, right? So once you as an upline bring in 4 downlines, then your downlines become uplines to other people. And so it's just a vicious cycle where you continue to recruit more and more people. And that kind of hierarchy continues throughout the system.
Interesting. So if you really look at it, there is one person at the top of each of these MLMs who is the ultimate upline, right, and everybody else is their downline. And I'm assuming that in this case, I take it money flows uphill. How does that work?
So typically you make a percentage off of what they sell. And so it's interesting because I think that's something that people really miss when joining MLMs, is that, they're pitched this idea that they'll make a lot of money. They'll be that person at the top. But a lot of the time, these people have been in the business, and not to say the business, but truly they've been in it for over 10 years. I mean, they've been in it for a very long time. And so most people, as we know with that stat, 99% of people lose money. Most people don't make it to the top. And so, yeah, I don't know if you have anything to kind of go off of that, Aaron.
I have some numbers from an AARP study. And this is kind of funny because when we were gathering our statistics, again, this kind of demonstrates how gray of an area and how good the industry is at keeping people away from the actual data and the actual numbers. So while the FTC study stated that 99% of people don't make money, AARP was a little more generous with that. They stated that a quarter of people make a profit. Within that group, though, you have 14% of people making less than $5,000, 6% making between $5,000 and $10,000, 3% making between $10,000 and $25,000, 3% making $25,000 or more, and then kind of like capitalism gone wrong, where everything just kind of stratifies toward the extreme. You have 0.05% of that group making $100,000 or more, which is what you do see in a lot of the bigger MLMs. You'll have those influencers and almost those people that are made to be celebrities. They're the ones that are, out pushing out content and videos and marketing material saying, look at me, like I started this from my home. I was a mom while I was doing this, and through just a few messages and selling some stuff, now I make all this money and you can do it too. But really, if you get to the heart of it, that is just completely deceiving and not actually accurate of what someone's probability of making a profit and sustainable income would be from the business.
So those numbers you went over, Aaron, if I recall correctly, one of them was a $25,000 a year number, and that was for what percentage of people participating?
3%.
3%. And that's if we suss that out over a 2,000 hour year, that's $12 an hour. That's awful, and everybody else is making less than that. There's only like 2% of people in MLM that are making more than that, and that's, I think, one of the biggest mathematical reasons why folks who are seeking jobs should avoid that, because I live in a low cost of living city here in Milwaukee, and that is not a livable wage here. It really isn't. $12 an hour, that just doesn't hack it. And when 97% of the people aren't even making that, that's a tremendous red flag as to it being a bad idea for somebody to look at. Excellent data, my friend. Thank you for bringing the big guns on data. That's fantastic. Now, I know from our conversation in setting this up, each of you kind of has an MLM story, and maybe they stem from not quite knowing what an MLM was when you were younger, things like that, because I know there's a bunch that of companies that I had that revelation with. And, Ioanna, I'm going to let you go first on this because the story you told me in our pre-call was kind of wild and a pretty incredible example about how insidious an MLM can be, because it's not always the, oh, hey, it's this fabulous lipstick or eyeshadow or Tupperware or whatever it might be. There are some MLMs that seem a little bit more businessy, which is really interesting. And Aaron, feel free to interject when needed, because I know your role in this story is kind of intriguing as well. So you want to take it away.
Yeah. So I started dating someone almost 4 years ago, I think. And we had kind of touched on the conversation of what do you do? Do you work? Are you in school? At the time, I had just graduated undergrad. And so he was not in school. I think he was 20 at the time, and really kind of avoided having that conversation with me and just kept saying, I make people's dreams come true. And trying to give him the benefit of the doubt, I kind of ignored that and was like, okay, maybe he takes his job really seriously. He feels really inspired. I'm not going to judge him just from that statement, which I should have. And he kept referring to things like financial freedom, would say things like, banks are awful. I don't know why you have a checking or savings account. He would just throw various statements at me that I didn't agree with, but I didn't want to kind of push that person because I cared about that person at the time.
Sure. Yeah.
So yeah, it was an interesting beginning. And now looking at it, as a 26-year-old, that was a clear red flag. So if anyone's listening, if someone pitches you, financial freedom or, you can join the business, or I make people's dreams come true, just take a step back and kind of reevaluate that stance. But, me and that person started to continue to date, and slowly he started to kind of open up more and more about what he did.
Okay.
I come to find out that he was selling life insurance. And I didn't really know much about it. I have a background in broadcast journalism, and I was a dance major. I had no idea anything about the financial world. I didn't even really know anything about life insurance. So I had a very strong opinion about life insurance, and I said that. And, we started to get into some arguments. But at the time, I still didn't even know that he worked for an MLM. So a few months in, he starts mentioning Primerica, which is a financial MLM. They sell life insurance. And so I come to find out that he was working for Primerica. And so he said he had his own business. That was kind of the initial thing. It was like,
okay.
Oh, I'm in finance. I have my own business. And then he started getting, working really late hours, like we're talking 10, 11 p.m., going to people's houses, selling life insurance. And I thought that was a little weird. Yeah. Yeah. He would just go missing at 10 p.m. and he's like, oh, I'm at someone's house, trying to get them to buy life insurance. And I was like, as someone who hates sales, to be honest, I was like, well, this sounds awful. You're just bombarding people in their homes, trying to sell them pretty awful life insurance, if I may say. And it just didn't feel right. So, but I was in a relationship with this person, and I wanted to, again, give them the benefit of the doubt and say, okay, maybe it's not that bad. And so I actually started to go into the office and kind of saw other employees. And I didn't really understand the dynamic because I was constantly being told that they were having new, learning classes, or just training was the constant thing. Oh, I'm training. I'm learning more. And the training was, just PowerPoint slides put together by someone higher up in the company. And they really just tried to recruit anyone. It was pretty sad. While I was there, they recruited 2 people. One had just gotten out of prison and did not even finish high school, had a goal to go back to school. They told him, hey, don't go to school, just come work for us. You'll make millions of dollars, pitch this idea. And then the second person was a mom of 4, and this really broke my heart. Her husband was in jail, and she was the sole provider for her kids.
Whoa. And
they got her into the company. She really believed that she was going to be successful and start a business that would provide for her children.
Hey listeners, we're going to take a quick break here for some of the business side of running a podcast. These sponsors not only believe in this show, but they may have a product, service, or even an open position that can help you end your job hunt. Give them a listen and drop by their websites in thanks for their help in supporting this show and your work search. Hey folks, it's Rob. A lot of times on this show, we talk about the power of networking to find a job. Well, networking is exactly how we wound up partnering with our newest sponsor, CoinList. So you're asking yourself right now, Rob, what is CoinList? Well, CoinList is a San Francisco and New York City-based technology company that provides investors with access to the most cutting-edge investment opportunities in the blockchain and cryptocurrency space. On CoinList, investors can access the best new crypto tokens before they list on other crypto exchanges, and it pays to be early in crypto. Now, right now, they have two special offers for listeners of Recruiting Hell. The first, as a Recruiting Hell listener, you'll earn $10 of Bitcoin when you create an account and trade at least $100 worth of assets on the CoinList trading platform. That's right, you heard me, free Bitcoin. Just visit www.coinlist.co/recruitinghell to get started. The second is something that could end your time in recruiting hell altogether. CoinList is hiring. You heard me right, CoinList could be your next great opportunity for work. Excited about cryptocurrency? Got a passion for technology? Find CoinList's open positions today at coinlist.co/jobs. That's coinlist.co/jobs. And when you do, be sure to tell them Rob sent you. We're back. A big thank you to our sponsors for their offerings as well as you for considering them. On with the show.
And it was really disappointing to watch them continue to recruit people that were vulnerable. So fast forward, the relationship was very rocky, primarily because of this MLM. So I started to dig a little deeper. I talked to Aaron about it. I was like, I don't know what this is. I come to find out it's an MLM. I had no idea what that was. And then I realized I didn't want anything to do with it. So I started to be vocal about that. I'm Greek and I'm very opinionated and I stand by my opinion. And, I let him know that I did not agree with the company, the fact that they attacked vulnerable people. I just didn't want to be involved in it. And at that point, he actually tried to recruit me into the company. And so I was basically like 1 minute away from signing my life away to Primerica. I refused to give him my social security number, and that kind of set him off, and he freaked out and, went on a rant about how you don't trust Primerica or trust me. And then went on to try to recruit Aaron, which I made a point to say, please do not recruit my friends and family. They do not agree with this, and I don't want them to be involved. So that continued. He went on to try to get certified in his S7, S6, I forget what it is, Series 6, and various other certifications. And so I actually ended up going to a Primerica event. It was very cult-like. Everyone there it was very scary. I mean, I didn't know what I was going into. And it was just a lot of people talking, higher ups, uplines, speaking on about how they were making millions of dollars. You had those one or two families that said they hit the 1 million, and they were wearing these rings that said 1 million on them. They were kind of like school rings, but they were Primerica rings. And everyone was taking, vigorous notes, trying to learn from these people. And the only thing I kept hearing at this particular convention was banks are bad. Take the money you make at Primerica or wherever else you have another income coming in and invest back into Primerica because they want to continue to feed their stock and continue to do well financially. So it was like this weird, again, cult that was just having people take all their money, invest it back into the company. And so that was kind of his mindset. He told me to never put money into a checking account, that I was crazy to do that. Banks are awful. And I just kept saying, I love Chase. I love banks. And so, I refused to invest. And so that relationship ended, thankfully. And that's really what sparked my passion for the anti-MLM movement, because I really had no idea really what an MLM was until I was so in it. And I'm so thankful that I had a friend like Aaron who literally flew down to Florida, picked me up, had to deal with this environment. Poor guy was even recruited and drove me back home, or else I really believe I would still be stuck there. I owe Aaron my life. I really mean that.
Wow.
Not to get sentimental, but
That is just a wild story. And then, Aaron, I want to get your perspective on this in just a moment here, but just to unpack a little bit of that insanity, Ioanna. The thing that broke my heart there in your statements was the guy coming out of prison and the mom of 4 who is a single mother. And that's a stance that we take exceptionally strong positions on this show as well. You know, I've done shows about folks who are battling ageism, battling finding a job with a disability. That actually episode just aired the very same day that we're recording this. You know, these vulnerable populations, MLMs are like vultures to these folks, and it's just really an unfortunate thing. Yeah. So it's good to hear that. It's good to hear from you that there is you had an eye on that and going, wow, this is really wrong. And that's outstanding. Yeah. So, Aaron, I definitely want to get a little bit more of your feedback as you jump on an airplane and you fly down to Florida, I think it was. And you obviously get a rental car from the airport. You drive to this convention center, I'm assuming, and you're here on a mission to rescue your friend. Where do we go from there?
Yeah, so it is pretty much what it sounds like. So, one, I have debilitating anxiety of flying. Yeah, so that was bad already for me. But then Ioanna and her Primerica partner picked me up from the airport, and then before we actually even went to his house to get her stuff, make sure her car was all packed up. We went on this drive around the city, going to a couple chores that he needed to do, and it was the craziest thing, Rob. I swear. Odd. And then we go to his house, and his family was being really rude to me and talking about Primerica, and it was really just when we drove away into the Florida sunset, coming back to the north, it was something from a movie. It really was.
No, Aaron really saved me.
Wow. And what it sounds like is it sounds like you almost stumbled upon a nest of people that were in this MLM, and it had kind of consumed them a little bit. It's very interesting. Wow. So we've seen, again, people get overtaken by this, be exceptionally pushy, sacrifice relations for this. I guess, Aaron, the next story I think is worth hearing for our audience here is for you to finish this statement. You know, a famous YouTuber walks into my college gym.
Yeah. So in graduate school, when I was getting my MBA, I worked for University Recreation. So they kind of do personal training, fitness, nutrition stuff, all that kind of things. I was working for that department at the university, and I specifically was overseeing our fitness classes and personal training. And I was at a pretty rural university in Illinois, so I guess our stock of people that are certified and trained to teach classes is pretty limited. You kind of take what you can get and you teach and train students to teach classes and that kind of stuff. And you make do. You don't offer what you might get in the heart of Manhattan in terms of fitness, but you have something to offer to the community. So a year in, after I got back from Florida and was, just kept my head down, was working, this very famous YouTubers kind of / this was a couple years ago now, so social media influencers were kind of new. I don't think TikTok was really around yet, but she was really big on YouTube and Instagram. She literally, physically, this is not a figurative statement, this is a literal statement, walked into the university gym and asked to speak with someone about a job. And so I get called on the walkie, hey, there's someone here that wants to talk about teaching classes. And I was like, oh, that's great. We always need people. So I walk up front, and it's this gorgeous, tan, blonde, fit, super bubbly, has that
sure,
I don't know, influencer, celebrity kind of energy about them, where you're whoa, where did you come from? You literally just came down out of the sky. And she's like didn't give many details, no backstory or anything, but was just like, oh yeah, like my husband and I just moved here and I teach fitness classes. Like, are you guys hiring? And I was like, yeah, sure. Like, here, like, I'll send you an email this week. We can set up a time to have you audition. And so she gave me a business card, and then I went and searched, and she had a huge, like, following and was really well known and, like, all this stuff. Had her own, like, fitness brand, like, all this crazy stuff. And so my initial reaction was, oh, this is awesome. Like, this is what this program needs. Like, this program is underfunded. We are in desperate need of, like, some life, some energy. This person will be great. Like, they have a following. They're bubbly. Like, they're going to bring everything that we need to this, like, kind of rural, underfunded public university. Like, it's perfect. So I was really excited. But then knowing what I knew about, because I had studied business in undergrad and I had some MLM exposure through education and through Ioanna's experience, based off of my, like, deep dive on her social media, I realized, oh, she is, like, really big in Beachbody. Like, she was the type of upline in the company where she was going on, like, the Mexican cruises and the trip to the resort in the Bahamas with the other top 1%ers. And she had, like, all these pictures and videos with Shaun T, who's, like, this huge person in that field. And I was like, oh, like, number one, I like, this is cool, but where is she coming from? And number two, why is she here at this random university in the middle of nowhere asking to teach one class a week for, $11 a class to college students? And I don't know how long it took me to realize, or if I realized right away, but I realized she's not here to teach fitness classes and to deliver a good service to the community members. She's here to recruit students to join Beachbody, to be members of her team, to boost her numbers.
So you see, listeners, we've just started to scratch the surface of what MLMs are, and from what we've seen so far, they seem to be two things: dishonest and manipulative. We'll be back next week with more from Ioanna and Aaron as we continue this conversation and find out exactly how Aaron handled his situation at his college gym with an MLMer. As we draw this episode to a close, remember, you are worth more than your work. Your value to society is not dictated by what you do to pay your bills. Job hunting is difficult, no matter your age, gender, location, or background, and it's both acceptable and to your benefit to seek every bit of help in conquering this challenge. For more from Recruiting Hell, subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast player or our YouTube channel, and don't forget to leave a review of the show if your podcast platform allows it. It's tremendously helpful. Connect with Rob via LinkedIn. Be sure to visit recruiting-hell.com to subscribe to our newsletter. And of course, follow the show all across social media. Just look for the orange and blue flame logo. Recruiting Hell is a production of Westport Studios and is proudly made in Wisconsin. Lastly, be sure to visit and support our sponsors. They make it possible to do this show and make it better every single week. Remember, your job hunt is a marathon, not a sprint, and Recruiting Hell will be here to help you keep pace. Thanks for listening. Hey folks, it's Rob. Are you looking for a new opportunity in an up-and-coming industry that can help you get out of recruiting hell? CoinList, one of the fastest growing companies in the cryptocurrency space, is hiring. That's right, they not only support this show because they believe in it, but they believe that there's great talent to be found in this audience. Generous comp, great flexibility, incredible benefits, a strong culture, and a powerhouse team. Sound like a fit for you? Head to www.coinlist.co/jobs and apply today. That's www.coinlist.co/jobs. And be sure to let them know that you found them here on Recruiting Hell.